1,600 for a pardon.
Tonight, the fallout after President Trump pardons nearly 1,600 January 6th defendants.
I think we're in a pretty dark period.
With nearly 140 law enforcement officers assaulted in the riot, our exclusive interview with the chief of the U.S. Capitol Police. Are your officers concerned about their safety? From Texas to Florida, the rare snowstorm hitting the South.
Stay at home, try to stay off the roadways.
Hand over the phones.
And in tonight's Eye on America, we put students' attachment to their smartphones to the test.
Do you know how to text on there?
No.
No.
The CBS Evening News starts now. Good evening, I'm Nora O'Donnell. Hundreds of January 6 rioters are free tonight, and many more will be soon after President Donald Trump issued a full and unconditional pardon and shortened prison sentences for all of the nearly 1,600 defendants. President Trump is also dismissing charges for those not yet tried. Among those who have already been released, the former leaders of the far-right extremist groups, the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers. They are two of the highest profile defendants. Enrique Tarrio was serving 22 years, and Stewart Rhodes was serving 18 years. Throughout the campaign, Trump pledged to pardon the rioters, calling them patriots and hostages of the justice system. CBS's Scott MacFarlane leads off our coverage tonight from Capitol Hill.
Among those walking out of prison tonight, Rachel Powell of Pennsylvania.
Thank you, President Trump, and thank God for sparing his life.
Found guilty in 2023 of pushing a barricade into police and breaching a window, she's part of the largest criminal investigation in American history, which is now suddenly over. Nearly 1,600 people, including hundreds accused of beating, gassing, clubbing, and maiming police, are pardoned. President Trump defended it tonight.
So these people have already served a long period of time.
Some of Trump's Republican Senate allies acknowledged the news was unexpected.
It was surprising to me that it was a blanket pardon. Now I'm going through the details.
But they didn't offer denunciations. The pardons underscore the wide range of January 6 defendants, from those convicted of misdemeanors like unlawful parading to the Minnesota man convicted of assaulting 4 officers, including with a police riot shield. He was one of nearly 160 who CBS News found had criminal pasts ahead of January 6th. And the former New York City police officer who was serving about 10 years for assaulting police outside the Capitol. The pardons are a gut punch for police victims and some congressional staff, like Sharon Nichols, who barricaded inside an office as the rioters pillaged.
Seems like it would be troubling to know everybody just got pardoned.
Yeah, I mean, more than troubling, it's made me angry. I've been fighting some disillusionment. I think we're in a pretty dark period.
Far-right group leaders Enrique Tarrio of the Proud Boys and Stewart Rhodes of the Oath Keepers were among those released, with more than 10 years remaining on their sentences.
President Trump did the right thing by letting these guys out and pardoning them because they did not get a fair trial.
In the past 2 weeks, Vice President J.D. Vance, House Speaker Mike Johnson, and Trump's Attorney General nominee Pam Bondi have all said those who committed violence should not be included in pardons. Trump didn't answer questions about that tonight. Pam Bondi still faces a key Senate vote here next week. Nora?
Scott MacFarlane, thank you so much. You know, when we're talking about that violence enacted on those police officers, it's important to remember there are about 140 law enforcement officers that were injured on January 6th, and more than half of them were Capitol Police officers. Tonight, we spoke with the chief of the U.S. Capitol Police for his reaction to the pardons in an exclusive interview. We know that more than 170 people, these January 6 defendants, are accused of using a deadly or dangerous weapon against law enforcement, a fire extinguisher, a 4x4, bear spray. What kind of message does that send?
Well, I think it sends the message that politics is more important than policing. And my officers go out there every day and enforce the law impartially.
If violent criminals are pardoned, does that put law enforcement officers in danger in the future?
It could put any of our communities in danger. Anybody that is convicted of a violent crime and then allowed to not serve their sentence or just be let off the hook, I think it has an impact on our communities nationwide.
How has this pardoning of all of those involved in January 6th, how has that affected the morale of Capitol Police officers?
I've talked to a few officers, and I know some of my leadership team has told me that there's a lot of officers that are angry, they're upset, and I don't blame them.
Why are some of your officers angry and upset?
Well, because they believe that they were doing their job properly that day, and this sends a message to them that somehow it was okay for these folks to do the things that they did. This
is not just about President Trump, right? I mean, there was a commutation issued by former President Biden as well before he left office.
That's correct. Leonard Peltier, who in 1975 killed 2 FBI agents. He was a political activist who felt he was fighting for his cause. And yesterday he was set free.
What message does that send?
Well, I would tell you, I'm sure it sends a pretty poor message to the FBI and frankly, to every law enforcement officer in this country, to think that if, you are killed in the line of duty, that at some point it becomes okay, because it's not okay for the families of those FBI agents. And those FBI agents are still dead. And yet the man that killed them has been set free.
Chief Manger, thank you for being here, and thanks to all of your officers. We now know that attorneys general from 22 states are now suing to block President Trump's move to end what's known as birthright citizenship, that is, guaranteeing that children born in the U.S. are citizens regardless of their parents' status. We get more on Trump's new immigration battles from CBS's Weijia Jiang at the White House.
A church service at the National Cathedral marks the final event of inauguration. But unlike most sermons, this one was directed at President Trump.
I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now.
Reverend Marianne Edgar Buddy used her audience with the president to defend the undocumented immigrants Trump has vowed to deport, with ICE raids starting as early as this week.
The vast majority of immigrants are not criminals. They pay taxes and are good neighbors.
Back at the White House, Trump was unmoved.
Not too exciting, was it? I didn't think it was a good service.
The president has already signed 7 executive orders on immigration.
That's a good one. Birthright. That's a big one.
Including one that refuses to recognize children born in the U.S. as American citizens if their parents are unauthorized immigrants.
We're the only country in the world that does this with birthright.
At least 22 states and the District of Columbia have sued to block the measure, arguing birthright citizenship is enshrined in the Constitution under the 14th Amendment.
The executive order renders many children born on American soil without citizenship, creating for the first time a class of American-born children whose health and well-being are threatened by their own government.
Despite President Trump's claim that the U.S. is alone, more than 30 countries have unrestricted birthright citizenship. Ending it here was one of Trump's campaign promises. And tonight, the White House says it is ready to face those state lawsuits in court. Nora?
Weijia Jiang, thank you. President Donald Trump's nominee to lead the Pentagon is facing new charges of abusive and drunken behavior in a sworn affidavit read by senators. CBS's Nicole Killian has the details.
Pete Hegseth's former sister-in-law, Danielle Hegseth, alleges the defense secretary nominee was abusive toward his second wife, Samantha. In a sworn affidavit provided to the Senate Armed Services Committee, Danielle Hegseth claims Samantha told her she once hid in a closet for fear of her safety.
Would you like a copy of it?
Democrats who reviewed the statement were outraged.
What I read in that affidavit reinforces the idea that not only is Pete Hegseth not qualified to be Secretary of Defense, he is truly a danger.
Danielle Hegseth, who was married to Hegseth's brother, also alleges Samantha had a plan to get away from Hegseth by texting a safe word to her if she needed help. During his confirmation hearing, Hegseth denied any allegations of violence toward his former wives.
Did you ever engage in any acts of physical violence against any of your wives? Senator, absolutely not.
To be confirmed, Hegseth can only afford to lose 3 Republican votes. Some, including Maine's Susan Collins, are still deliberating.
I had told you earlier that I was undecided.
In a statement to CBS News, an attorney for Pete Hegseth said that his ex-wife Samantha never alleged any abuse in court documents or to the FBI, and he called Danielle Hegseth's claims belated and false. Nora?
Nicole Killian, thank you very much. Turning now to the Arctic freeze affecting parts of 30 states. For the Deep South, it's unprecedented. Snow, ice, and even blizzard warnings stretching along the coast from Texas through Louisiana and into the Florida Panhandle. CBS's Katie Weiss is in New Orleans, which is experiencing its biggest snowfall on record. Katie?
Well, good evening, Nora. You know, NOLA is now SNOLA. 9 inches of snowfall here today, and it's still coming down. It's the most the Big Easy has ever seen in recorded weather history. And now, just at this hour, we're learning that the city has brought in 14 snowplows to come and clear these roads. Those plows coming from Indiana, driving down yesterday to take care of that. All this amid the state having its very first blizzard warning ever today. Palm trees covered in snow, streets slippery with ice, like this one leading to the Superdome, where the Super Bowl will be played in less than 3 weeks. This SUV lost control and hit a curb. And this historic weather event isn't over yet.
This winter wonderland that we're seeing right now is going to end, and a hard freeze is going to begin.
On iconic Bourbon Street, people were still letting the good times roll. But most Louisianans are heeding warnings to shelter in place.
Are you going to be doing anything to commence or celebrate this historic day?
Eating some good food, maybe make a pot of gumbo, something like that.
Yeah. I'm Skyler Henry in Tallahassee, Florida, where crew trucks like this one are using sand mixtures to treat the roads ahead of the storm. As snow creeps into the Florida Panhandle, 5 inches of snow in Pensacola has set a record. In Tallahassee, emergency management crews are concerned about elevated roadways that can quickly freeze over.
The snow is not a common occurrence, so we don't have the magnitude of equipment that you have in the northern state. We don't have the salt, but we do have sand, and we'll use sand to help maintain the road surfaces to the best of our ability.
There's no relief at the beach. A dusting of snow has turned a beach day into a snow day. We've reached the freezing rain portion of this wintry weather. Now, snow has caused issues for travelers as well. Several airports, including the one here in Tallahassee, suspending operations until the weather passes. Add on to that, concerns about sheets of ice building along the I-10 corridor. Nora?
Sounds dangerous. For more on where this weather is headed next, let's bring in CBS's Lonnie Quinn. Good evening, Lonnie.
Well, good evening to you, Nora. The picture behind me, I know this is a little distracting. Let's broaden it and you'll get a better perspective on things. All right, that is blowing snow. And it looks like what could be a coastal New England town. Well, it's a coastal town, all right. That's Pensacola, Florida. There's 6 inches of snow on the ground right now in Pensacola. You just heard New Orleans, 9 inches, but New Orleans, not the biggest number in Louisiana. Lafayette, with almost a foot, 10.5 inches of snow. New York City, on the other side of the coin, only 1.6. Where does the system go? Well, it's going to be pushing off to the east, so places like, well, Charleston, South Carolina, Savannah, into maybe Raleigh, North Carolina. 3 to 6 inches for you, and whatever you pick up, look at this. It's not going anywhere. It stays bitterly cold. All of that light blue or purple, either cold weather warnings or extreme cold weather warnings. You're waking up to some tough numbers out there. Tomorrow morning, it's 3 below in Washington, but look at New Orleans. It's 11 degrees to kick off your day. Towns that don't see snow, they've seen snow tonight. Nora, it's all yours.
Lonnie, thank you so much. Dozens are dead in a fire at a ski resort in Turkey. The details when we return. A fire has left at least 76 people dead and more than 50 hurt at a ski resort in Turkey. Flames broke out in the middle of the night in a 12-story wood frame hotel. It's the start of a 2-week school holiday in Turkey, and the hotel was packed with families. At least 2 of the victims jumped to their deaths. The cause is under investigation. Eye on America is next with a flip phone experiment. How will these 8th graders manage without their smartphones? New York Governor Kathy Hochul is calling for restrictions on cell phone use in schools across the state. At least 8 states have enacted statewide bans or restrictions on phones in schools. Anyone with a child knows how challenging it is to separate a kid from their phone. But in tonight's Eye on America, CBS's Meg Oliver found out kids will survive.
Like most 8th graders, 14-year-old Ben Cohen-Victor has a cell phone. Unlike most, his is a flip phone.
Why did you want to try a flip phone?
I knew that something had to change because I was not getting my work done. I was very anxious. I was biting my nails a lot.
It all started last February when Ben lost his cell phone on the school bus.
I was without a phone for sort of 2 days, and I realized how my days were just so much longer and more full.
So much better, the lacrosse goalie made the radical choice to buy a flip phone.
I feel very proud of myself.
He used to average up to 5 hours of screen time a day. Now it's about 30 minutes. A CDC report says half of American teenagers spend 4 or more hours on screens. Teenagers with higher daily screen time are more likely to experience anxiety and depression.
It can be distracting.
So we asked 4 of Ben's friends, Carson, Renita, Jameson, and Maya, all 8th graders in New Jersey, to try flip phones for a week.
What is your average daily screen time on your phone?
10.5 hours.
10.5 hours? What are you doing on your phone for 10 hours a day?
Watching Gossip Girl and TikTok.
They were curious but skeptical about the experiment. Jameson says he isn't doing as well as he wants to in school.
I think my phone's a big factor in that.
Although Renita plays 3 sports, she admits wasting time on her phone.
Then I'll realize 30 minutes or an hour has gone by.
Carson agreed to participate, but the avid basketball player was nervous.
As I got closer, I started having bad thoughts about it.
But Maya, who loves studying English and just started rowing, is hoping this trial helps her at night.
Hand over the phones. Let's see. It's gonna be okay. Thanks, Jameson. Are you ready? Here's your new flip phone. Do you know how to text on there?
No.
No. It's day 2. It was hard because I didn't have my phone.
Carson didn't make it. He asked for his phone back within 24 hours.
What have you been doing without your smartphone?
I just sat there and stared at my wall until I'd practice.
How do I add a new contact?
The others stuck it out, sending in mostly positive reviews.
I have been sleeping a lot better. I'm a lot less tired during the day. I don't have my Apple Pay, which really doesn't help.
I finish homework so easily and faster.
Hi.
Hello there.
How are you?
7 days later, we reconvened.
It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
And Jameson, what was the positive for you?
Well, I talked to my parents a lot more and I went out a lot more with my friends.
What did you learn from this?
I think that not your whole life should be on your screen. There should be things just off of that.
I think it helped them even in ways they don't realize.
In February, it will be a full year for Ben and his flip phone. His friends may not want to join him full time, but he believes it's never too late to make a change.
It doesn't have to be something as drastic as completely getting rid of all your social media. I still have an Instagram account that I will use on my computer, but it's more about doing small things that you can bring together to just fix that constant need.
A smart lesson learned without a smartphone. For Eye on America, Meg Oliver, Montclair, New Jersey.
Great, great story. Everyone should try that. We'll be right back.
This portion of the CBS Evening News is sponsored by Ancestry. Discover, preserve, represent.
Finally, a familiar face is returning to host this year's Grammy Awards and to help honor the victims of the LA wildfires. Comedian and former Comedy Central host Trevor Noah will lead music's biggest night for the 5th straight year. The awards at the Crypto.com Arena in downtown Los Angeles will highlight the bravery of first responders and help raise funds for the thousands of affected families. Beyoncé leads the nominations with 11. And a reminder, you can watch the 67th Grammy Awards on Sunday night, February 2nd at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific, right here on CBS. And that's tonight's CBS Evening News. I'm Norah O'Donnell. Good night.